Hey everyone, welcome to Anime Dreams. Glad to have you here on my YouTube channel. Today's fanfic discussion is an exciting one. What if Naruko mastered the Snake's Age mode? Before we dive in, a quick disclaimer. This channel is purely for entertainment and discussion purposes. I do not own any of the anime footage used in my videos. All rights and credits go to their respective creators and copyright holders. Now, without further ado, let's jump right in. As Naruko Uzumaki stirred from sleep, she was met with an unexpected and startling sight. Resting at the foot of her bed, its body partially draped over her legs, was a rattlesnake. The only reason she immediately recognized the species was due to the telltale sound of its tail, a detail she owed to her academy instructor, Iruka, for teaching her about. However, as she rubbed the remnants of sleep from her eyes and took a clearer look, it became evident that this was no ordinary rattlesnake. Far from it. The serpent before her was significantly larger than any she had ever seen. This was no mere snake, it was a formidable predator, a creature few could challenge and emerge victorious against. While Naruko wouldn't say she was afraid of snakes, the sheer size of this one was enough to make her uneasy. It was coiled tightly, appearing as though it was resting, but Naruko instinctively knew better. This snake was anything but asleep, it was poised, alert, and fully aware of its surroundings. And considering the circumstances, she had the unsettling suspicion that she might just be its intended target. Her pulse quickened, adrenaline surging through her veins as she took in the serpent's impressive length. If fully uncoiled, it would likely measure around 10 meters long and nearly half a meter wide. The realization sent a shiver down her spine. If anyone from her graduating class ever discovered that she had been scared enough for an unfortunate accident, her already fragile social standing would be completely ruined. The snake, however, was well aware of her presence. Lacking strong eyesight, it relied on its other senses, particularly its tongue, to detect movement and scent. And at this moment, it could easily pick up on the overwhelming wave of fear radiating from Naruko. The faintest hint of amusement flickered across the serpent's face, its smooth scales shifting slightly as it smirked. It was evidently pleased with the reaction it had provoked. But the time for mere observation was over. The snake had come for a purpose. "You are Naruko Uzumaki, correct?" The reptile spoke, its voice a soft yet unmistakably feminine hiss. Naruko's eyes widened in shock. A talking snake? Of all the things she had encountered in her life, this was something she hadn't been prepared for. Completely caught off guard, she blurted out the first thing that came to mind. "No way. A talking snake?" she exclaimed, staring at the creature in disbelief. The serpent, who had yet to introduce herself, sighed, as if she had expected such a response. Based on the reports her father's informants had gathered, Naruko was known to be somewhat lacking in manners. Initially, the snake had dismissed these claims, assuming they were exaggerated. Unfortunately, the reports had been entirely accurate. Suppressing her irritation, the snake chose to stay focused on her objective. "Yes. Now, answer my question. Are you Naruko Uzumaki?" she repeated, her words laced with a quiet yet firm authority. Still somewhat dazed by the situation, Naruko responded in her usual blunt manner. Normally, she would try to be more polite in conversation, especially if it meant making new friends, but after the events of the previous day, she wasn't in the mood for pleasantries. "Yeah, and what of it?" she grumbled, her tone making it clear that she wasn't particularly interested in chatting. In fact, she wasn't interested in talking to anyone today, not even Sakura Haruno, her teammate and longtime crush. The snake, however, remained unbothered by Naruko's attitude. She had a mission, and she intended to see it through. After all, she had been sent by none other than Manda, the formidable king of serpents. Failing was not an option. Ignoring Naruko's impatience, the snake continued. "Now, Naruko," she began, deliberately emphasizing the name. The subtle twitch in the blonde's left eyebrow indicated that she had struck a nerve. Not that it mattered. If it came down to it, the snake was confident she could handle any challenge Naruko might throw her way. And with that, the encounter had truly begun. After a brief pause, during which she observed Naruko's reaction, Seikudo finally spoke. "Now, Naruko," she said deliberately, watching for the subtle twitch of Naruko's eyebrow before continuing with the conversation. "We have been observing you for quite some time." Seikudo's gaze remained fixed on Naruko, eager to see how the young ninja would respond. Indeed, her words had an effect. A confused expression flashed across Naruko's face before shifting into one of irritation. "Why have you been watching me? What could I have possibly done to make someone, especially a giant talking snake, take an interest in me?" Naruko's emotions wavered between feeling flattered at the thought of someone acknowledging her and concerned about what such attention might mean. Slithering closer, the purple rattlesnake moved onto Naruko's lap, her voice remaining calm and measured. She hoped to convey a sense of reassurance, at least enough to let Naruko know that she meant no harm. "We have been watching you because you possess certain qualities that make you a strong candidate to join the Snake Clan," Seikudo explained, carefully observing Naruko's reaction. Naruko tilted her head, clearly perplexed. "What do you mean? What traits do I have that would make me a good fit for your clan?" she asked eagerly. A deep longing for belonging radiated from her, a desire to be part of something greater. Seikudo, however, was mildly annoyed. Someone of her status, a princess of the Snake Clan, was being spoken to in such an informal manner. It should have been the other way around. But she quickly pushed those thoughts aside, choosing to remain composed. "You have demonstrated intelligence through your pranks, even if they are unconventional," Seikudo pointed out. "Your ability to plan and execute these tricks reveals strategic thinking, which is a valuable skill." Naruko was taken aback by the unexpected praise. A light blush dusted her cheeks. No one had ever acknowledged her pranks as anything other than childish mischief. Even Iruka and the Hokage, the two people she respected most, often dismissed them as a distraction from her true potential. Hearing someone recognize their value filled her with a quiet sense of pride. Noticing how Naruko was processing the compliment, Seikudo inwardly smirked. "I have her exactly where I want her." Was it questionable to appeal to the emotions of an orphan seeking validation? Perhaps. But in the end, Naruko would benefit from this, too. "You have also shown remarkable cunning," Seikudo continued. "Despite your limited training, you have demonstrated impressive stealth and resourcefulness when evading capture." Naruko, still unused to receiving such recognition, blushed once more. "You are also wise in how you manage your resources," Seikudo added. "From a young age, you've had to be mindful of how you budget your money. Many children take such things for granted, but you have learned to be self-sufficient." The unspoken truth lingered, Naruko had no choice but to learn these skills. Yet, hearing them framed as strengths rather than struggles filled her with an unfamiliar warmth. "And when you mastered the Ninpo, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, the shadow clone technique, in just a few hours, it proved that not only are you a fast learner, but you also possess the determination to become a great shinobi," Seikudo remarked. Naruko's blue eyes widened with pride. She had always believed in the value of hard work, and hearing someone else acknowledge her dedication meant more than she could express. Recognizing the opportunity to reinforce these qualities before anyone else could sway Naruko in another direction, Seikudo pressed on. "The greatest trait you possess is your unwavering determination," she declared. "No matter the obstacles in your way, you confront challenges head-on, always striving to achieve your goals. Even in the face of failure, you continue to push forward. Your dream of becoming Hokage is a testament to that strength." Naruko's eyes welled up. No one had ever spoken to her like this before. The Hokage and Tuchi, the kind ramen shop owner, had encouraged her dreams, but this was different. This was genuine acknowledgement, unwavering support. It was overwhelming, even a little frightening. Sensing that Naruko needed comfort, Seikudo slithered closer and wrapped herself gently around the small-framed girl. But this was not the constricting embrace of a predator, it was the warm, reassuring gesture of a guardian. Naruko let herself relax, taking a few minutes to steady her emotions. The coolness of Seikudo's scales was oddly soothing. For the first time in a long while, she felt truly seen. Once Naruko had composed herself, Shaikudo slowly uncoiled. "Now, I must take my leave, Naruko-kun. I need to return to my father and report on our conversation," she said, her tone shifting back to businesslike. "If you wish to join the Snake Clan, you must continue to grow, becoming someone who will bring honor, not disgrace, to our name." With that, Shaikudo turned away, leaving Naruko deep in thought about the path that lay ahead. In her eagerness to stay in the company of the snake, Naruko nearly shouted, "Wait a second. Can you tell me how I can improve my chances of becoming a member of the clan? And when will you let me know if I've been accepted?" She asked with urgency, having made up her mind in that moment, she wanted to be a part of the clan. The way Shaikudo had reassured her, affirming that she could one day become Hokage, was something Naruko deeply appreciated. Though it might seem counterproductive to undo her previous efforts, if it meant increasing Naruko's chances of being accepted, Shaikudo felt it was worth sharing the information she sought. After all, she had already helped boost the young Kunoichi's spirits, why not go the extra mile? The potential benefits would be immeasurable. Carefully selecting her words to reinforce Naruko's commitment, Shaikudo began to speak with deliberate precision. "Before we begin, Naruko, grab a pen and some paper. It's important to take notes so you can review and refine your skills rather than stagnating in your growth, both as a person and as a shinobi." Naruko quickly pushed aside her blankets, got up, and retrieved a pen and paper from her dresser. The young Jinchuriki was eager to hear what she needed to write down. "First and foremost, you need to work on patience. You tend to be impulsive, which can be a serious disadvantage, not only as a ninja but also in life. A Hokage must analyze every detail carefully rather than jumping to conclusions. Making the wrong decision could have serious consequences. If you become Hokage, the safety and well-being of all Konoha's citizens will rest on your shoulders." Naruko swallowed hard at the weight of Shaikudo's words, nodding as she hurriedly scribbled down the lesson. "Next, you need to improve your emotional intelligence," Shaikudo continued. "Snakes are strategic, intelligent, and skilled at navigating relationships to achieve their goals. If you lack emotional intelligence, you risk being manipulated by those around you. At this stage, you still have a long way to go in that regard. If you are to represent our clan, you must learn how to manage your emotions and interactions wisely. Your actions will reflect on all of us." Naruko, having grown up as an orphan, had never given much thought to embarrassment. She was used to being disregarded, so what others thought of her rarely mattered. But the possibility of belonging to a family, no matter how unconventional, was too important for her to risk jeopardizing. She wanted them to take pride in her, not look at her with disappointment. "Another aspect you must improve is your appearance. Right now, you present yourself as immature, as if you don't take your shinobi career seriously. Whether you like it or not, first impressions matter. People will judge you based on how you carry yourself. Your clothing affects your status in society and can even impact your success on missions. The Snake Clan holds itself to a high standard, and we expect our summoner to represent us with the same level of dignity." Naruko flinched at the remark. She had always struggled to afford new clothes, and besides, she truly loved the color orange. Shaikudo, however, did not need to voice how much she disliked Orochimaru's fashion choices. "Now, I'm not saying you need to completely change your style, I know how much you love orange," she added, casting a dry glance at Naruko's attire. "But you do need to adjust your wardrobe to reflect your role as a ninja, not a civilian. If you want to earn the respect of others, it won't come from flashy colors or loud behavior. True respect is earned through conduct and strength as a shinobi." Naruko rapidly nodded, realizing that people naturally respected Sasuke more than her. In their eyes, he was a more competent shinobi, someone who carried himself with dignity. Above all, Shaikudo concluded, knowledge is your most valuable asset, and unfortunately, it is also your weakest area. You are resourceful in battle, but your general knowledge and understanding of what it takes to be Hokage are severely lacking. This must be addressed immediately. Normally, Shaikudo wouldn't have looked up, knowing Naruko would be busy writing. But when her sharp senses detected no sound of the pen scratching against the paper, she turned around, curious. The sight before her made the purple rattlesnake hesitate for a moment. A rare feeling of guilt flickered within her. She could easily guess what was going through Naruko's mind. However, it was not her responsibility to coddle a Genon. In the world of shinobi, Naruko was already considered an adult. With her message delivered, Seikudo silently slithered toward the door, leaving the young Uzumaki deep in thought. "Thank you, Snake. I truly appreciate everything you've done for me today. You've given me a lot to think about," Naruko said sincerely. The snake simply nodded in acknowledgement and began making its way toward the window. Before it could leave, Naruko spoke up once more. "Excuse me," she said, trying to practice good manners, something she rarely had the opportunity to do. The last time she had made an effort was when she wanted access to the library. "You never told me your name. May I know what to call you instead of just Snake?" she asked as politely as she could, despite her lack of formal training in etiquette. Impressed by her effort and the respectful tone, the snake decided that Naruko had earned the right to know its name. "My name is Seikudo. You may address me as Seikudo-sama," the serpent responded. Naruko nodded in understanding and quickly jotted the name down on a piece of paper to ensure she wouldn't forget it. She was trying her best, after all. "Seikudo," Naruko whispered, testing how the name felt when spoken aloud. Without wanting to make things too easy for her, Seikudo offered one final piece of advice. "Naruko, before I go, there is one more thing you must remember," she said. Naruko focused on her gaze drawn to the snake's striking purple scales and sharp yellow eyes. "You still have much to learn about the Ninpa, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, ninja arts, shadow clone jutsu," Seikudo said cryptically before slithering out of the open window with effortless grace, using her chakra control to descend smoothly. "Wait a minute. She never told me when they'd be coming to tell me if I could join their clan." Naruko realized. "Oh well, I guess I'll just have to be ready whenever they arrive," she mused to herself. With a renewed sense of purpose, one she hadn't felt in a long time, Naruko made her way toward the library. Just as she was about to lock her apartment door, she suddenly remembered the piece of paper. Retrieving it quickly, she set off once again, this time with a firm determination in her stride. 1 month later. A month had passed since Naruko's encounter with the princess of the Snake Clan. Reflecting on the changes in herself, the blonde couldn't help but feel a deep sense of pride. She had grown, not just in skill, but as a person. Comparing where she had been a month ago to where she was now, she recognized her progress. No longer the impulsive, impatient child she once was, she now saw herself as more mature. Granted, she was still only 13, but she felt wiser for her age. The Konoha General Shinobi and Civilian Library was the largest collection of books and knowledge in the entire elemental continent. It was a point of pride for those who managed it, and Naruko intended to make full use of its vast resources. She dedicated countless hours to reading, absorbing as much information as possible. She revisited lessons she had overlooked at the academy, reinforcing what she already knew and expanding her understanding of the shinobi world. One of the biggest changes in her over the past month was patience, something that Tucci and Ayame at Ichiraku Ramen had witnessed firsthand. She no longer spoke with her mouth full, a small but significant improvement. It may not have seemed like much, but to Naruko, it was progress. As much as she was beginning to realize that eating ramen every day might not be the healthiest choice, the warmth and sense of belonging she felt at Ichiraku were irreplaceable. It remained her happy place. Ayame had noticed the change. The first time Naruko had eaten more politely, Ayame had raised an eyebrow but kept her thoughts to herself. However, as Naruko continued to display better manners on each visit, the shift became too noticeable to ignore. Flashback. Ayame couldn't help but notice the surprising change in Naruko. The girl who used to devour bowls of ramen without a second thought was now displaying a level of patience and restraint that was completely out of character. Her curiosity was getting the best of her. What could have caused such a transformation in such a short time? Of all the possibilities Ayame had considered, one stood out the most: Naruko was doing this to impress that pink-haired girl she had a crush on. Her teammate, Sasuke, was always composed and well-mannered, so maybe Naruko thought that adopting a similar attitude would improve her chances. Now, Naruko, why are you trying so hard to impress that pink-haired girl? Are you practicing for a date in case she says yes? Ayame asked, raising an inquisitive eyebrow. Completely unaware of Ayame's train of thought, Naruko responded politely, "No, Ayame. I just got some advice from someone that if I ever want to become Hokage, I need to learn to be polite and well-mannered, especially for all the meetings and events I'll have to attend." She finished her statement with a small smile. That was all Ayame needed to hear. Her curiosity was satisfied, and she went back to taking orders from other regular customers, many of whom were both intrigued and slightly cautious about Naruko's newfound respectfulness and patience. End flashback. Over the past month, Naruko took immense pride in her progress, particularly in improving her reading and writing skills. Before her meeting with the heiress of the Snake Clan, these skills had been, to put it mildly, severely lacking. Her handwriting had once been nearly illegible, little more than a collection of messy scribbles. Reading had been just as challenging. She had struggled to keep up with lessons at the academy, falling behind early on and finding it nearly impossible to catch up without dedicated effort. Unfortunately, none of her teachers had the time or inclination to help her bridge that gap. At one point, Naruko had nearly given up, resigning herself to the idea that she might never master these fundamental skills at even an average level. That all changed when she discovered the true potential of Ninpa, Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, ninja arts, shadow clone jutsu. Shakudo had left a subtle hint, and to her surprise, Naruko deciphered it more quickly than expected. The realization dawned on her when she sent one of her clones to retrieve the next book in a beginner's reading and writing series. When the clone returned, it not only knew the book's title but also retained the contents of the table of contents, having gotten curious and skimmed through the pages. When the clone dispersed, Naruko was startled to find that she now possessed that knowledge as well. That's when she remembered Shakudo-sama's words, there was still much she didn't fully understand about the jutsu. Driven by curiosity and her preferred learning method, trial and error, Naruko began testing the limits of what her clones could absorb. If she could accelerate her learning process, she could drastically cut down the time required to prepare herself for the Snake Clan summons, whenever they decided to call upon her. Since she had no definite timeline for their offer, she had to be ready at all times. Her excitement grew when she discovered that muscle memory and hand-eye coordination transferred from her clones as well. However, the only drawback was that physical exhaustion did not, meaning she would still have to train in taijutsu personally. With this newfound method, her reading and writing skills rapidly advanced to an adult level. Those close to her were thrilled by these changes, particularly Iruka and the Ichiraku family, who had witnessed firsthand how hard she had been working. They could see her maturing, steadily growing into the person they always believed she could become. However, not everyone welcomed Naruko's transformation. Her teammates, Sasuke and Sakura, each had their own perceptions of the shift. Sasuke, albeit mistakenly, saw her change as an attempt to imitate his composed and detached demeanor. To him, it seemed like some sort of unconventional strategy to surpass him, one more way his determined rival was trying to close the gap between them. Meanwhile, Sakura viewed Naruko's newfound maturity as yet another ploy to win her over, assuming it was a desperate attempt to compete with Sasuke for her affection. The unpredictability of Naruko's change unsettled her, making her want to push her back into the role she had always expected her to play. Sakura frequently dismissed Naruko's progress, insisting that no matter how much she changed, she would never be someone worthy of attention or admiration. More than that, she openly criticized her for acting calm, collected, and polite, traits she associated with Sasuke. In the end, she succeeded in one thing: Naruko lost all interest in pursuing her. Now viewing things from a different perspective, Naruko began analyzing Sakura's qualities through the lens of the Snake Clan's values. If she were to align herself with them, her partner would need to be someone who embodied their ideals as well. Yet, when she considered Sakura's tendencies, her impulsiveness and brash nature, she realized they closely resembled the person she herself used to be. That led Naruko to a striking revelation: Sakura would never be seen as a suitable match in the eyes of the Snake Clan. They valued discipline, self-improvement, and composure, qualities that, from what Naruko had observed, Sakura had never prioritized. Despite being a kunoichi in training, she showed little dedication to her own development, spending more time fixated on Sasuke than on honing her skills. For the first time, Naruko truly saw the difference between who she had been and who she was becoming. In addition to this, she placed great emphasis on her appearance, considering it a crucial aspect of her identity as a kunoichi. While it was true that shinobi were expected to maintain a presentable image, there was a limit to how much importance should be given to aesthetics. Naruko, however, no longer had any doubts about her future. She was destined to become the Hokage of Konoha. It was not a question of if but when. All that remained was for her to put in the necessary effort to become truly worthy of the title. What ultimately made Naruko realize that Sakura was not the right person for the individual she was striving to become was her short temper. The Snake Clan, whom Naruko had grown close to, would not appreciate someone who lost patience so easily. Sakura's frustration could be triggered with little effort, and that kind of volatility was not something Naruko wanted to be surrounded by. While her teammates disapproved of her recent transformation, others remained undecided. Among them were two significant figures in Naruko's life: her sensei, Kakashi Hatake, and the man whose role she aimed to inherit, Hiruzen Sarutobi. Both Kakashi and Hiruzen observed Naruko's shift in personality with a mix of curiosity and concern. At first, they saw it as a positive development. After all, Naruko needed to mature if she wanted to achieve her ambitions. However, as time passed, they began to notice that her change ran much deeper. The lively innocence that once defined her seemed to be fading, replaced by something far more resolute and serious. They couldn't help but wonder what had caused such a transformation. If there was anyone in Konoha who had ever had reason to leave the village behind, it was Naruko Uzumaki. She had endured a difficult childhood, one made even harder by the attitudes of the villagers. Yet, the future of the Hidden Leaf rested on her shoulders more than she realized. Both Hiruzen and Kakashi were determined to ensure that Konoha would flourish, and that meant doing whatever it took to support Naruko on her path forward. Naruko was doing her best to keep her energy in check, but the lively blonde struggled to completely suppress it. Every now and then, her excitement would slip through, making her act like her old self. "Yeah!" Naruko cheered, throwing her fist into the air as she jumped, unable to contain her excitement. However, she quickly remembered that she was supposed to be staying composed. Realizing her outburst, Naruko blushed and pulled up the collar of her orange jacket, hoping to avoid the curious gazes around her. Watching the scene unfold, Hiruzen Sarutobi chuckled in amusement before refocusing everyone's attention. It was time to explain their upcoming mission. Sasuke smirked slightly at Naruko's reaction. It reminded him of the energetic girl who, despite everything, was the closest thing he had to a friend. "First of all, congratulations," Hiruzen began, his warm gaze scanning the members of Team 7. "This will be your first real mission beyond the standard D-ranked assignments that all teams must complete." Seeing the eager expressions on their faces, he continued, though a small part of him remained concerned. While it was heartening to see Sakura and Sasuke's enthusiasm, Naruko's excitement about leaving the village gave him pause. He could only hope it didn't indicate anything deeper. As long as she still held on to her dream of becoming Hokage, everything should be fine. Kakashi, anticipating what was coming, didn't interrupt as the Hokage chose to slightly adjust the truth. "In fact," Hiruzen continued, "both Kakashi and I have been quite impressed with how your team has handled your missions so far. As a result, we've decided to let you skip C-ranked missions and move straight to a B-ranked mission." His smile remained as he observed their reactions. As expected, Team 7's responses were exactly what he had anticipated. Sakura, the pink-haired kunoichi, looked even more nervous than before at the thought of such an important mission. Sasuke, on the other hand, remained calm and confident. His recent success as the Rookie of the Year had only reinforced his belief in his abilities, setting him apart from his flustered teammate. Observing Naruko, Both Kakashi and Hiruzen were impressed by the balanced expressions on her face. A mix of nervousness, confidence, and determination to take on the mission was evident. Though she displayed noticeable anxiety, Naruko did her best to conceal it behind a small, polite smile, one that was becoming more natural with time. Eventually, this composed expression would be more familiar to those around her than the wide, mischievous grin she once wore. In Hiruzen's eyes, it was bittersweet to see her maturing so quickly. He had hoped her youthful enthusiasm would linger a little longer. For your mission, you are to travel to the hidden village in the grass, also known as Kusagakure, Hiruzen informed the 4 members of Team 7. The reason for your assignment is that your sensei, Kakashi, is well known throughout the world. He will be conducting diplomatic negotiations in hopes of securing a trade agreement, exchanging some of our crops for their expertise in poisons. Hearing this, Sakura felt slightly more assured about their chances of success. From what had been explained, this mission didn't seem to demand extensive combat skills, which was a relief given her current level of ability. Sasuke, on the other hand, was somewhat disappointed. When he first heard they were embarking on a B-rank mission, he had anticipated facing skilled opponents, an opportunity to test his abilities. However, based on the details provided, this mission seemed to be classified as B-rank due to its significance rather than its level of danger. Even so, deep down, a small part of him felt relief, though he wouldn't openly admit it. Like Sasuke, Naruko also wanted the chance to prove herself. She had 2 reasons for this. First, she wished to demonstrate her worth to the Snake Clan, proving that she was a capable shinobi deserving of their recognition. Secondly, she wanted to silence the doubters back in Konoha, those who had looked down on her or underestimated her. She longed to see their smug expressions fade once they realized how wrong they were about her. At the same time, Naruko shared some of Sakura's concerns. She wondered if she truly had what it took to complete the mission successfully. Despite the bold front she always put on, deep down, she often struggled with self-doubt. She knew she had improved significantly over the past month, but the lingering question remained, would it be enough? Understanding that time was of the essence, Hiruzen knew he needed to wrap up the briefing and send Team 7 on their way. He had other missions to assign, and as Hokage, efficiency was crucial. Without delay, he continued speaking. Now then, you all have a mission to prepare for. Make sure you're ready for anything, he instructed, addressing not only Naruko, Sasuke, and Sakura but also Kakashi, whom he hoped would catch the underlying message. Recognizing the unspoken dismissal, Kakashi gave a slight nod to the Hokage before turning to his students. Let's go, he said, leading them out of the office. Once outside, and safely away from the Hokage's chambers, Kakashi began explaining the mission in greater detail. While this mission is classified as B rank, there's no need to worry too much, Sakura. The ranking is based on its political importance rather than its level of danger, Kakashi reassured them. His students listened attentively, eager to understand what lay ahead. Normally, a mission like this wouldn't require much concern from a seasoned ninja like Kakashi, who was a high A rank, nearly S rank shinobi. However, given the mission's economic significance, he was relieved that the trade agreement had already been approved by the Hokage. His role was mostly to finalize the formalities and ensure everything proceeded smoothly. That being said, he continued, I don't want any of you letting your guard down. We can't rule out the possibility of an attack, so I expect you to stay alert. Even if nothing happens, being prepared never hurts. Both Naruko and Sasuke nodded in understanding. Sakura, however, still appeared apprehensive, her expression betraying her nerves. Seeing this, Kakashi was reminded of his former teammate, Rin, and did his best to offer reassurance. Kakashi was not particularly skilled at comforting others, especially teenage girls, but he gave it his best effort. Ma, don't worry too much, Sakura-chan. I won't let anything happen to you. I promise, he said, his tone light yet firm. You can count on me. His words seemed to ease her tension, as Sakura straightened her posture and nodded with more confidence than before. Satisfied that his team was prepared, or as prepared as they could be, Kakashi added one final note before departing. He had plans to meet up with Guy and Asuma at the bar before their mission began, and he wasn't about to miss out. Our mission begins tomorrow morning at 7 o'clock sharp. I expect all of you to be on time. Also, since the mission is expected to last about a week and a half, pack accordingly. With that, Kakashi gave them an eye smile before disappearing in a puff of smoke, leaving his 3 young students to make their final preparations. Realizing that they had the entire day without their sensei around, Sakura saw an opportunity and decided to take her chance. "Hey, Sasuke-kun, would you like to go on a date with me?" the pink-haired girl asked, already imagining the perfect future in her mind. Sasuke, however, was unimpressed. He couldn't understand how Sakura was so focused on romance instead of their training as ninjas. This time, his rejection was firm. "No, Sakura. You're a ninja. Your priority should be making sure you're prepared for the challenges ahead, not worrying about dating," he stated before walking away. His words brought back the doubts that their sensei, Kakashi, had previously helped her overcome. Meanwhile, Naruko had different concerns. She knew that she only had one ninjutsu technique at her disposal, and she didn't believe that was enough. Wanting to better prepare herself for any potential ambushes during their mission, she decided to head to the library, searching for anything that could improve her chances of success. With newfound knowledge from the library, Naruko headed to the same spot, eager to make the most of her limited time. Knowing she had to use every moment wisely, she went straight to the Jinan section and selected a book that seemed most relevant to her situation. After quickly skimming the table of contents, the young Uzumaki found what she was looking for and flipped to page 33. According to the book, elemental ninjutsu was a shortcut to grasping the basics of jutsu, though true mastery required years of dedication. It emphasized the importance of understanding one's elemental affinity, as every ninja naturally resonates with a specific element, making it easier to learn. Conversely, some elements would be more challenging, requiring extra effort. By discovering their affinity early on, shinobi could focus their training effectively, leading to quicker progress and greater motivation. To determine one's elemental nature, the book suggested visiting a shinobi gear store to purchase elemental paper. This special white paper, typically displayed at the front counter, would react uniquely when infused with chakra, revealing the user's elemental alignment. With past experiences shaping her decisions, Naruko had resolved to only buy new clothes in a different village. For now, her focus was on training. Rushing inside a nearby store, she grabbed a piece of chakra paper and quickly exited, leaving the shopkeeper momentarily puzzled as she looked up from filing her nails. Training Ground 7. Upon arriving at the training ground, Naruko settled beneath a tree, ready to put her new knowledge to the test. She carefully held the chakra paper in her hand, channeling her energy into it. Her eyes widened with fascination as the paper reacted, splitting cleanly in half. Curious about what this meant, she turned her attention back to the book for answers. When you infuse chakra into the paper, it will respond in one of 5 ways, corresponding to the 5 basic elemental affinities. In rare cases, a unique reaction may indicate a special bloodline ability. If the paper crumbles into dust, it signifies an earth affinity. The stronger the connection, the more it will break down, even forming small pebbles if the affinity is particularly powerful. Naruko skimmed further until she found the section detailing wind affinity. If the paper splits into 2 equal pieces, it means you have an affinity for wind release, the rarest of the 5 elements. The sharper and cleaner the cut, the stronger your natural connection. If the edges are as sharp as the paper's original sides, you possess an exceptional aptitude for wind-based techniques. Looking down at the neatly divided paper, Naruko picked up one half and ran her finger along the edge. A small paper cut formed almost instantly. Realization dawned on her, she had a strong wind affinity. The knowledge filled her with excitement. Having the rarest element felt like an incredible discovery, though she had yet to consider the challenges that came with it. After all, an affinity for wind in the land of fire was as uncommon as a water user in the desert nation of Suna. Determined to begin training immediately, she returned to the book, searching for a suitable starting technique. Her eyes landed on a particular entry. Wind Release, Air Bullet Jutsu. Naruko read the words aloud, letting them settle in her mind. This technique is typically the first step for wind users. It serves as an introduction to elemental ninjutsu, helping shinobi understand how to manipulate wind chakra in combat. By compressing air into a spherical shape, the user can launch a concentrated blast toward a target. The force of the technique depends on how efficiently the wind is condensed. With this new goal in mind, Naruko's determination burned brighter than ever. She was ready to take her first step toward mastering her element. The hand seals required for this technique are as follows: horse, snake, bird, ram, tiger, monkey, and finally bird. A helpful tip for all wind style users is that, in most cases, wind-based ninjutsu tend to conclude with the bird hand seal. Smiling as this sounded like exactly what she needed, Naruko got to work. Given how quickly she had mastered the Shadow Clone Jutsu, a B-ranked technique, the blonde Jinchuriki assumed she would have no trouble learning a C-ranked wind-style jutsu. Ordinarily, most Junon would have an easier time with such techniques thanks to their sensei providing lessons in chakra control. Unfortunately for Naruko, that had never been the case, making it much more challenging for her to learn new jutsu on her own. Despite all her efforts, by the time her self-imposed bedtime of 9 p.m. arrived, she had only just managed to perform the jutsu at a passable level. Had anyone witnessed her frustration, they might have found it amusing. After all, most wouldn't expect a child to complain about learning a technique in just one day. The next morning, thanks to her well-tuned internal clock, Naruko woke up at precisely 6:30 a.m. Even though she had to be at the village gates by 7 o'clock, she still had enough time to prepare. After rinsing off the sweat from the previous night's training, Naruko reminded herself that she would soon be heading to the land of grass. The last thing she wanted was to make a bad impression by arriving unkempt. Besides, the journey was bound to be hot and messy, so starting fresh was a good idea. Once she finished her shower, Naruko went over to her chest of drawers and pulled out the clothes she would need for the mission, at least until she had a chance to buy more along the way. That was when she grabbed her signature orange tracksuit. Contrary to what some believed, she did not wear a single-piece jumpsuit. It was actually a two-piece tracksuit, perhaps not the most stylish choice, but it was hers. After finishing 10 cups of instant ramen and 2 glasses of milk, Naruko was finally full. At least for the moment. Packing her backpack with essential supplies, including a sleeping bag, she did one last check to make sure she hadn't forgotten anything. A relieved sigh escaped her lips when she spotted her small frog-shaped wallet, one of her most treasured possessions, second only to her old goggles. Setting aside nostalgic thoughts, she tucked the fat, money-filled wallet into the right side pocket of her jacket. She hoped that if anyone ever tried searching through her belongings, they would overlook the smaller pockets in favor of the larger compartments. At the village gate, arriving at Konoha's main gate, Naruko quickly spotted her teammates, Sakura and Sasuke, sitting on a bench. As expected, Sakura was busy fawning over Sasuke, while the Uchiha did his best to maintain his usual cool and indifferent demeanor. "You're late." Sakura huffed, clearly annoyed that Naruko had interrupted her moment with Sasuke. "Sorry, Sakura, but Kakashi-sensei isn't even here yet so." Naruko trailed off, leaving the pink-haired girl to realize that, as long as she had arrived before their notoriously tardy sensei, she wasn't too concerned about her own lateness. A long wait. 2.5 hours later, Naruko was struggling to contain her frustration. Though her expression remained neutral, a deep scowl was etched onto her face. She had woken up early despite being exhausted, all to prepare for this mission, only for their sensei to be nowhere in sight. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the village, Kakashi was probably taking his time, unbothered by the fact that his students were waiting for him. "I thought he'd take punctuality seriously now that we finally have an important mission." Naruko fumed internally. In that moment, she felt a flicker of disappointment toward her sensei. Finally, after another 15 minutes, Kakashi Hatake, the former Onbu captain, casually strolled up to where his 3 students were still sitting, patiently waiting for him. With a puff of smoke, Kakashi appeared in front of Team 7. This immediately triggered the usual reaction from the pink-haired kunoichi of the group. "You're late!" Sakura exclaimed, frustration evident in her voice. She had spent so much time waiting when she could have been focusing on other things, like perfecting her appearance. Kakashi, as always, remained completely unfazed by her irritation. Even the normally stoic Sasuke narrowed his eyes slightly at their chronically tardy teacher. With a casual shrug, Kakashi offered his excuse in an easygoing tone. "Ah, sorry about that. You see, there was a ladder blocking my apartment's doorway. I had to wait until the workers finished fixing the ceiling before I could leave. I couldn't risk walking under it. Imagine if that bad luck rubbed off on all of you." As if to add insult to injury, Kakashi walked over to Sakura and playfully ruffled her carefully styled hair. "Ugh!" Sakura groaned, her frustration growing. She immediately pulled out a mirror, trying to fix the mess Kakashi had just made of her efforts. Now that the moment had passed, Kakashi turned his attention back to the team, preparing them for their first mission outside the village. Time skip. Naruko was the first among Team 7 to witness the breathtaking sunrise over the grassy plains of Kusagakur. The serene beauty of the scene made her wish she could see it every morning. Following instructions, she made her way to Sasuke's tent to wake him so they could begin their journey for the day. Soon enough, the entire team was prepared to continue their trek through the countryside toward the village hidden in the grass. Meanwhile, Kakashi, sensing two approaching chakra signatures, immediately became alert. One of them felt eerily familiar, and he frowned beneath his mask, recognizing exactly who was coming after them. The second presence, though smaller, indicated that the enemy had underestimated his team, believing a single Chunin would be enough to handle all three of his students. This would be Team 7's first true test, and Kakashi could only hope they would rise to the challenge rather than crumble under pressure. "Team," Kakashi called out, his tone sharp and commanding, much like the one he had used during his time in the Anbu Corps. Immediately, the trio turned to give him their full attention. "We have two incoming enemy ninja from Iwagakure. Based on their chakra, I can tell they specialize in earth release techniques. One is a Jonin, and the other is a Chunin." Kakashi continued, his voice firm. "I had hoped to avoid a situation like this, but we don't have that luxury. The Jonin is far too skilled for you to handle, so I will take him on alone. That means the three of you will need to face the Chunin. Stay focused, work together, and don't underestimate your opponent." His gaze grew even more serious. "If you manage to defeat the Chunin before I finish my fight, do not interfere with my battle. The Jonin could use one of you as a hostage, making the fight even more dangerous. Understood?" The three Genin exchanged determined looks and nodded. They knew this was their first real challenge, and failure wasn't an option. "Your best option right now is to come up with a strategy as a team," Kakashi advised. "I won't be able to help you." Sasuke was the first to act, quickly piecing together a plan. For the first time, even he felt the weight of the moment, acting on instinct rather than arrogance. "Here's the plan," he began, assuming a natural leadership role. "Naruko, you'll take the lead at first. We need to analyze his attack patterns and adjust our strategy accordingly." Naruko nodded, understanding the importance of her role. "How many battle-ready clones can you create?" Sasuke asked. Naruko thought for a moment before responding. "Around 300. Sasuke's mind worked swiftly, refining their approach. "All right. Your clones will launch the first attack, forcing him to reveal his techniques and movements. Try to have them restrain him if possible." Naruko nodded again, determination shining in her eyes. "While your clones keep him occupied, all three of us will attack from a distance with kunai and shuriken to limit his movement. If they manage to hold him down, I'll use my fireball jutsu to weaken him further, and then we'll finish the fight together." Sakura and Naruko exchanged uneasy glances, realizing the gravity of the situation. This wasn't training, this was a real battle. But despite their nerves, they steeled themselves for the challenge ahead. Even as Sakura focused on preparing herself, She couldn't help but admire Sasuke's quick thinking. Seeing him take command like that stirred something in her, but she pushed the thought aside. Now was not the time for distractions. The team braced themselves as the enemy closed in. This was their moment to prove themselves. For Kakashi, this mission had become deeply personal, and he was determined to bring justice for his fallen friend, comrade, and teammate by defeating Kako of Iwa. This man was the reason everything had unfolded the way it did. In Kakashi's eyes, Kako was responsible for what happened to Obito. Eager for a challenge, Kako took the initiative. "Well, Kakashi, why don't we take this fight deeper into the forest? That way, we can truly test our skills," the brown-haired man suggested, eager to measure himself against the renowned ninja. He still remembered the time he had narrowly escaped Kakashi and his sensei. Kakashi found himself at a crossroads. While he wanted to separate Kako from his students to prevent another hostage situation, he had no information about the Chunin's abilities or whether his team could handle him. In the end, he chose to trust in his students and their training. With a nod from both sides, Kakashi and Kako dashed off to the right, ready for their long-awaited rematch. Team 7 in action. Ha ha ha. Go ahead, little rookies. I'll give you a moment to put your so-called teamwork to the test. Show me the strength that Konoha prides itself on, the man with a single-sleeved outfit taunted, his confidence evident. Given the opportunity, Sasuke quickly took charge and formulated a strategy. Listen up, he's overconfident, and we can use that against him. Naruko, you charge in alone. While you're approaching, Sakura and I will throw kunai past you. As soon as they reach him, use your shadow clone jutsu. From there, we'll execute the same plan as before. Got it? Sasuke instructed, assuming leadership. Naruko and Sakura agreed, as no better alternative came to mind in the short time they had. Interestingly, Sasuke failed to recognize the irony in his own confident approach while criticizing their opponent's arrogance. All right, go, Naruko. We'll back you up with kunai. Sasuke commanded. With a determined nod, Naruko sprinted toward the Iwa Chunin. Their opponent, a shinobi from the land of Earth, was curious about what the young Genin had devised in such a short time. Whatever their plan, he remained unconcerned. After all, he was a Chunin, and they were just newly graduated Genin. Judging by Naruko's attire, she didn't seem particularly experienced either. As she neared him, Naruko made a quick decision to adjust Sasuke's strategy to her advantage. Channeling extra chakra into her technique, she created a thick cloud of smoke, effectively concealing the battlefield. This sudden distraction caught the Iwa Chunin off guard. Junta, the enemy shinobi, tensed as the battlefield was enveloped in haze. However, Sasuke had thrown his kunai with enough force that their trajectory remained unchanged. Some of Naruko's clones were struck and disappeared instantly, but the remaining projectiles continued toward their original target. Unfortunately, Sakura's kunai lacked the same strength and stopped upon hitting another of Naruko's clones. To Naruko, this sacrifice was worthwhile as long as Team 7 made it through the battle safely and without serious injuries. The first kunai cut shallowly across the Iwa Chunin's hip. The second struck deeper, lodging into the muscle of his thigh. Sasuke smirked as he saw the opening his attack had created. Without wasting the opportunity, Naruko's clones sprang into action, each grabbing one of the Chunin's limbs, leaving only his left arm free. Once positioned, the clones swiftly executed their part of the plan, striking his restrained limbs with their knees. Each managed to land 2 blows before disappearing. Sasuke wasted no time. Forming the Tiger Hand seal, he took a deep breath. Fire release, Great Fireball Jutsu. He called out, releasing a powerful burst of flame toward their opponent. Realizing the danger, the Iwa Chunin's survival instincts kicked in. Earth release, Double Suicide Decapitation Jutsu. He exclaimed, quickly burrowing underground to evade the incoming flames. The clones remaining in the attack's path were caught in the blast and vanished instantly. Hearing the name of the technique, Sasuke's eyes widened as recognition dawned on him. Everyone, listen. He called out, gaining Naruko and Sakura's attention as they scanned the area. "This is the same jutsu Kakashi-sensei used on me during our Jinan test. Our opponent is underground. He's going to try and drag one of us beneath the surface," Sasuke warned. Understanding the danger, Team 7 immediately adjusted their stance, focusing their attention on the ground, ready to react the moment their enemy re-emerged. Hearing what the black-haired child had said while he was underground, the Chunin muttered under his breath, quickly formulating a new plan. Those kids actually managed to come up with a solid strategy that left him injured. And wait. What's this? They even figured out the jutsu he's using? This is more challenging than expected. Looks like it's time to take things up a level. Who would have thought that a group of fresh academy graduates could be this skilled? Reassessing the situation, Hunter realized that he needed to take Sasuke out of the fight first. It was clear that he was their leader. The moment a hand emerged from the ground, the Uchiha heir reacted swiftly, shifting his right foot just in time to avoid being pulled under. However, unaware of the true intent behind the attack, Sasuke's eyes widened as the enemy reached for his ankle instead of trying to drag him underground. With only a fraction of a second to react, he barely dodged the grab before retaliating, stomping down hard on the hand multiple times. How is this kid this skilled? He can't just be a fresh academy graduate. His reflexes are too sharp. If Kako-senpai is struggling against Kakashi, then I need to wrap this up quickly. If I can impress Kako, I might finally earn my promotion. Having just developed what he believed to be his most powerful jutsu, the Chunin from the land of Earth decided there was no better way to test it than on a group of fresh Shinan. Silently, he activated his technique, causing the earth beneath him to soften into mud and shift about 5 meters behind Team 7. All of this happened while Hunter remained hidden beneath the surface, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. To complete his jutsu, the black-haired shinobi slowly emerged from the ground, his body covered in a layer of mud with small openings left for breathing. Once fully formed, he prepared to launch his first attack. The Iwa Chunin swiftly fired a hardened clump of mud directly at Sasuke, confident that none of the Jinan would hear it cutting through the air. He couldn't wait to see their reactions. It was always amusing to toy with the emotions of young shinobi from Konohagakure. However, if there was one advantage Naruko had developed from her difficult childhood, it was her heightened awareness of her surroundings. The blonde-haired Uzumaki turned instinctively, eyes widening as she caught sight of the incoming attack. A football-sized sphere of hardened mud was soaring straight towards Sasuke. If it hit, it could cause serious harm. Without hesitation, Naruko lunged forward, pushing Sasuke out of the way just in time. Ideally, she wanted to avoid both of them getting hit, but in the process, the attack struck her left ankle. A sharp cry of pain filled the air as Naruko collapsed, clutching her leg. Sasuke, who had barely registered what had happened, turned to see something that made his chest tighten, a familiar, terrible feeling of helplessness washing over him. There Naruko was, the only person his age who had managed to form even a remote bond of friendship with him. She was the only one who truly understood what it meant to be alone. Without realizing it, Sasuke felt a surge of emotion, frustration, anger, and determination, all fueling his chakra. His eyes burned, and before he knew it, his clan's legendary ability, the Sharingan, had awakened. A single tomoe spun in each eye as he took control of the situation, his mind sharpened by adrenaline. "Sakura!" Sasuke called out, his voice firm and commanding. The pink-haired Kunoichi, momentarily frozen in shock at Naruko's injury, snapped out of her daze upon hearing her teammate's voice. "Take Naruko into the trees and figure out a plan. We need to hold off our opponent until Kakashi-sensei arrives. I'll buy us some time. Got it?" Sasuke's tone was serious, leaving no room for argument. Even though he disliked the idea of relying on others for help, he refused to let his pride endanger his team. Especially not after Naruko had risked herself to save him. Sakura, momentarily distracted by how confident and authoritative Sasuke sounded, quickly nodded. She carefully lifted Naruko, making sure not to worsen her injury. Just by looking at her ankle, she could tell it was broken. Meanwhile, Sasuke turned his gaze toward their opponent, eyes burning with new power. The enemy wasn't just Hunta anymore. In Sasuke's mind, he saw something far more terrifying. His opponent blurred in his vision, morphing into a figure that haunted his past. Then, as the ground rumbled, a massive shape rose before him. Standing at least 3.5 meters tall, a serpent-like structure of mud coiled, narrowing as it extended upward. But it wasn't just a random formation. The mud had been sculpted into the shape of a dragon, its mouth holding yet another hardened sphere, identical to the one that had injured Naruko. The Chunin grinned, reveling in the dramatic reveal of his technique. "Behold, my ultimate jutsu. No one has ever faced this technique and won. Prepare yourselves." Though his words were filled with overconfidence, Sasuke couldn't deny that the situation was serious. But instead of fear, he felt something else: determination. Clenching his fists, he prepared to fight. He would not let his team down. "Isn't it an incredible technique? I call it my greatest creation, Doden, Nai Doryudan no Jutsu, Earth Release, Great Mud Dragon Bullet Jutsu. The reason for this name is simple: I combined two separate jutsu into one, creating something far more powerful than the original techniques. By merging Doden, Doryudan no Jutsu, Earth Release, Mud Dragon Bullet Jutsu, with Doten, Dosen Kiryu, Earth Release, Earth and Stone Dragon Jutsu, I have crafted something truly unique. And you, my opponent, are the first to witness its full power," the Iwa Chunin declared with pride, eager to showcase his hard work. Sasuke had heard enough. Seeing Naruko injured and unable to fight at full strength, his frustration boiled over. Without hesitation, he launched himself at a speed surpassing even what Naruko had displayed earlier. With his newly awakened dojutsu and adrenaline surging through his body, Sasuke skillfully evaded the barrage of mud projectiles. His enhanced vision allowed him to predict and dodge the attacks with ease. Determined and fueled by sheer resolve, Sasuke attempted to break the structure supporting the mud dragon, striking it with a series of powerful punches and kicks. However, his efforts proved futile. "Ha ha ha. Simple attacks won't be enough to shatter my jutsu. The mud absorbs the force and disperses it into the earth. If this is all you've got, you'd better think of something new, or I'll be ending this soon," the Iwa Chunin taunted. Unwilling to give up, Sasuke pulled out two kunai, one in each hand, and began slashing at the mud dragon in an attempt to weaken it. Seeing Sasuke's persistence, the green-eyed opponent took the fight more seriously, knowing that over time, the young Uchiha could pose a real threat. The Chunin retaliated with an even larger volley of chakra-infused mud bullets. One of them grazed Sasuke's outstretched arm, stinging but not slowing him down. Realizing that his current strategy wasn't effective, Sasuke took a few steps back, reassessing the battle. His concentration wavered as he dodged incoming attacks, and he knew he had to come up with a new approach. Waiting for an opening, Sasuke suddenly sprinted in a zigzag pattern before releasing a powerful fire jutsu. His attack finally landed, burning through part of the opponent's defense. Taking advantage of the moment, Sasuke quickly retreated into the forest, putting distance between himself and the battlefield. As he passed the first few trees, something caught his attention: the unmistakable sight of Sakura's pink jacket and hair. She had stayed behind instead of moving ahead as planned. Frustrated, Sasuke turned to her. "Why are you still here? You were supposed to go ahead and get help. The whole point of my distraction was to give you time to bring reinforcements and get someone to treat Naruko's injury," he said sharply. Sakura, visibly affected by his tone, hesitated for a moment. But then, summoning newfound determination, she met his gaze with confidence. "The first lesson Kakashi-sensei taught us, Sasuke-kun, was that in the ninja world, those who break the rules are considered reckless, but those who abandon their comrades are even worse. Just because you wanted to handle this alone doesn't mean you aren't part of the team. From now on, Team 7 is going to follow a new rule: one for all and all for one," she declared passionately. Sasuke was momentarily stunned into silence. Meanwhile, Naruko, using a makeshift crutch that Sakura had crafted from sticks and ninja wire, formulated a plan. "I have an idea to defeat this guy," she announced. Turning to Sasuke, she asked, "How much chakra do you have left? How many fireballs can you still produce?" After a brief moment of calculation, Sasuke answered, 2. Naruko nodded. "Can you combine them into one large fireball instead?" she inquired. Sasuke, confident in his fire-style abilities, nodded again. "Good. Now, I need something else for this plan to work." "Sakura," Naruko said, shifting her focus to the pink-haired girl, "do you have anything besides standard kunai, shuriken, and the ninja wire you used to make this crutch?" Sakura nodded before pulling out a kunai, one that was distinct from a regular one. It was an explosive tag kunai, a special weapon her parents had gifted her upon graduation in case of emergencies. Naruko's plan was coming together. These kunai were crafted from a unique chakra-conducting material, allowing for more precise seal placement and enhancing the effectiveness of those seals. Additionally, Jiraiya had inscribed advanced explosive seals on them, increasing their power significantly. Due to their enhanced capabilities, these kunai were considered highly valuable on the battlefield and were sold at a premium price. It was uncommon, especially for a newly appointed Genin, to come across one. "This is a special explosive kunai," Sakura explained, catching the attention of both Naruko and Sasuke. They immediately recognized that this kunai carried far more power than a standard one equipped with explosive seals. As soon as Naruko recognized what Sakura was holding, she grinned. It was exactly what she needed to execute her plan. With excitement in her voice, Naruko turned to both Sasuke and Sakura. "That's perfect, Sakura. It'll work great for what I have in mind," she said enthusiastically, already envisioning her strategy. "I've been practicing a wind release jutsu for the past few days. Wind enhances fire, making it even more powerful, and if we incorporate the kunai, it could create a significant impact," Naruko explained. Despite their curiosity about why she was working on this particular technique, both Sasuke and Sakura chose to stay focused on the moment. "Wait, Naruko, how do you plan on using your jutsu when you can barely move?" Sakura asked with concern. Her perception of Naruko had changed after witnessing her dedication and selflessness in battle. She was now more willing to trust her as long as she didn't bring up the topic of going on dates. Dismissing Sakura's concerns with a reassuring smile, Naruko waved off the worry. "Ah, don't worry about me," she said, trying to keep the team focused on the mission. Her words eased Sakura's doubts for the time being. Leaning on Sasuke for support, Naruko and her teammates prepared for their next move. Their opponent, an Iwa Chunin, was clearly furious that his carefully crafted technique had been countered so easily by what he saw as mere academy graduates. With a silent nod to each other, Team 7 initiated their attack. Fire Release, Great Fireball Jutsu. Wind Release, Air Bullet Jutsu. Both Sasuke and Naruko executed their respective techniques in perfect sync. The resulting fireball, fueled by Naruko's wind chakra, expanded to nearly triple its usual size. It was an impressive display of teamwork, and Sasuke made a mental note: he needed to learn how to enhance his own jutsu like this. From her position, Sakura watched in awe. The sheer scale of their combined attack momentarily caught her off guard, making her slightly late in executing her part of the plan. However, she quickly regained focus and acted with precision. She threw the special kunai in a calculated arc, ensuring it would intersect with both the fireball and the enemy shinobi. Since the kunai was made of steel rather than being wrapped in explosive tags, it didn't activate immediately. Instead, Sakura formed the ram hand sign and channeled her chakra into the kunai. Boom! The entire team watched in astonishment as the fireball collided with the opponent's mud-based defense, breaking it apart completely. For a moment, they believed the battle was over. Unfortunately, that was not the case. As Sakura turned away, relieved and ready to regroup with her team, the Iwa Chunin, now covered in mud and clearly unhinged, emerged suddenly. With wild determination, he lunged toward her, kunai in hand. Only Sasuke and Naruko noticed the attack in time. Sasuke, having exhausted his chakra, was unable to react. That left Naruko as the only one who could intervene. Without hesitation, Naruko launched another wind release, air bullet jutsu directly at the attacker. The jutsu struck with force, knocking him off balance and sending him crashing into the ground. Despite the setback, the enemy quickly realized Naruko's technique and adapted, now keeping a wary eye on her movements. Determined not to let him reach Sakura, Naruko fired another wind jutsu straight at him. This time, he managed to dodge, continuing his charge toward Sakura with an intense focus. Sakura, caught off guard, froze. She shut her eyes tightly, bracing herself. But instead of feeling an attack, she heard a loud crackling sound in front of her. Hesitantly, she peeked through one eye and gasped in surprise. "Ew!" she exclaimed, glancing down at the red stains that had splattered onto her dress. Kakashi swiftly took control of the situation, ensuring the safety of his team. Looking around to assess their condition, his gaze landed on Naruko, who was leaning heavily on a makeshift crutch. For a brief moment, concern flashed in his eyes. His sensei's daughter was injured. But upon closer inspection, he noticed that, despite her fatigue, she wasn't bleeding. Relieved, he turned his attention to Sasuke. The Uchiha stood with his Sharingan activated, one Tomoe in each eye. Kakashi felt a sense of pride knowing his student had unlocked a crucial part of his heritage. Seeing that he wasn't seriously injured, Kakashi allowed himself to relax slightly. Though the mission had taken an unexpected turn, the team had worked together and emerged stronger. "You've just awakened your Sharingan," Kakashi said to Sasuke, nodding approvingly. A small smile appeared on Sasuke's face before exhaustion took over, and he collapsed, unconscious yet content. Team 7 had faced a real challenge, but they had grown from it. The road ahead was still long, but with teamwork and determination, they were ready for whatever came next. Dear YouTube family, that's all for now. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more exciting updates. Thank you for your support. Best regards. Anime Dreams.